My name is Alexei, and my world has always been built on logic. As a programmer, I live by the principle that every action has a predictable consequence, every problem has a solution, and every stable system is based on clean, error-free code. For 8 years, I was sure that my marriage to Anya was my most successful project. It was a perfectly tuned program, where the variables of our personalities created not conflict, but perfect harmony. We had a house that we turned from a concrete box into a cozy nest. We had a golden retriever named Bite, who greeted us at the door, wagging his tail, like the living embodiment of our shared happiness. Our code was flawless. Anya was my complete opposite. She is an artist, a woman woven from emotions, nuances, and spontaneous impulses. If I was the architecture of the system, she was its bright, unpredictable interface. She could cry at the beauty of a sunset, or spend her last money on a silly antique vase because it looked at her with longing. It was her chaos that breathed life into my orderly reality. I was her rock, her quiet harbor where she could hide from the storms of her creative world. And she was my eternal source of inspiration, proving that beyond the binary code there is a whole spectrum of unimaginable colors. A few months ago, a new name appeared in her vocabulary, Maxim. A photographer. Talented, as she said. They met at some exhibition. At first, it was just enthusiastic stories over dinner. Lesh, you can't imagine, we're on the same wavelength. He understands my paintings like no one else. I listened and smiled. I was glad that she had found a kindred spirit in the art world, someone who could speak her language, the language of metaphors and images, which, despite my best efforts, I had never fully mastered. I believed her. When she said, "He's just a friend," it was an axiom for me, requiring no proof. After all, trust is not an option, it is the basic protocol of any healthy relationship. The first glitches in the system were almost imperceptible. Microscopic bugs that could easily be dismissed as errors. For example, her phone. It used to be lying around anywhere, on the sofa, on the kitchen table, in the bathroom. Now it was always with her. And it was always face down. As if there was some vulnerability on its display that needed to be hidden from the world. Then the notification sound changed. Before, her phone would sing a cheerful trill, but now it just vibrated quietly. But that quiet vibration became louder to me than any siren. She would flinch at it, even if she was in another room. Her fingers would immediately reach for the device, and a shadow of a smile would appear on her face, which she would immediately try to hide. The climax came on Friday evening. We were watching some TV series, and Bite was sleeping at our feet. Her phone, forgotten on the armrest, vibrated. A notification appeared on the screen. "Max Sparkles, are you wearing that dress right now, winky face?" I saw it out of the corner of my eye. Just for a second. But that second was enough to shake my whole world. She grabbed her phone as if it were a grenade with the pin pulled out. "Who is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, it's..." She faltered, feverishly typing her reply. "Max. He's asking for advice about a lens." "Boring," she lied. Easily, quickly, looking not at me but at the screen. It wasn't just a lie. It was a patch, hastily written to hide a critical error in the code. And I understood that. The first rail crack appeared in my perfect system. Doubt is a virus that doesn't hack the system, but slowly decomposes it from within. It penetrates the most reliable modules, trust, calmness, confidence, and turns them to dust. I began to see things I hadn't noticed before. Her meetings with friends became suspiciously frequent. Her delays at work coincided with his posts on social media from some cozy cafes. She bought herself expensive silk lingerie. "I decided to treat myself," she said. But I never saw it. I was becoming paranoid. I, a man of logic, began to live in a world of guesswork and suspicion. Every smile she gave that wasn't directed at me, every glance at her phone, seemed like part of some conspiracy. I hated myself for it. I tried to run an antivirus. In my head, I remembered our happy moments, her declarations of love, her tenderness. But the worm of doubt was stronger. It showed me her lies that Friday evening and whispered, "If she lied once, what guarantee is there that everything else is true?" Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. My firm belief in her fidelity collided with the irrefutable facts of her strange behavior. My brain was at war with itself. The worst part was the temptation. To take her phone while she was asleep. To open her laptop. To cross every conceivable and inconceivable boundary. I fought this desire like physical pain, because I knew that if I did it, there would be no turning back, regardless of what I found there. It happened on Tuesday evening. Anya decided to take a long bath with foam and salt, her favorite ritual for relieving stress. She left her laptop on the kitchen table and went to the bathroom with her phone, probably so she wouldn't miss any important messages. I went into the kitchen to drink some water, and I saw that the laptop screen was on. The messenger was open. The name, Max Sparkles, was first on the list. I froze. The air in my lungs ran out. It was the moment I had both feared and waited for. The moment of truth. There was an abyss in front of me, and I could either turn away, preserving what remained of my illusory faith, or look into it. I took a step forward. I didn't just read. I sank into this correspondence like quicksand. Page after page, month after month. It wasn't just emotional infidelity. It was a parallel life. A life in which I did not exist. I can't stop thinking about how you looked at me yesterday. I still have goosebumps. Today I lied to Leisha all day that I had a headache, just so I could go to bed early and talk to you. You are the only one who sees the real me. With him, I'm just playing the role of a good wife. I can't wait for our weekend. I've already thought of what I'll tell my husband. He's so trusting, he'll believe anything. Every word was like a blow with a red-hot needle. I read and physically felt something inside me break. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a complete devaluation of our entire life. My code, my ideal system, my love, all of this was just a role for her, a backdrop for her real romance. When I walked away from the laptop, I felt nothing. No pain, no anger, no resentment. Only deafening silence in my head and icy coldness in my chest. This is the psyche's defensive reaction to extreme trauma, emotional numbness. Faced with a task it couldn't process emotionally, my brain switched to the only mode available to it: emergency, logical mode. Problem: the system is infected with an incompatible element that is destroying the core. Analysis: the damage is critical and cannot be repaired. Solution: complete and irreversible removal of the damaged system. The rage came later. But it wasn't the kind of rage that makes you smash dishes and scream. It was the cold, quiet, systematic rage of a programmer who had found a foreign, malicious virus in his code. And now his only task was to isolate and destroy it, preventing it from spreading further. I wasn't going to give her a chance to justify herself. Lies are also data, but they are dirty, and distort the result. I would operate only with clean, irrefutable facts. My actions were devoid of emotion. They were an algorithm. Step 1. Open the web version of her messenger on my computer. Step 2. Methodically, without omission, take screenshots of all their correspondence over the past 3 months. Every compliment, every emoji, every lie. Step 3. Compile the files into one document. It turned out to be 34 pages. 34 pages of her secret life. Step 4. Send the document to print. The printer in my office came to life. Its monotonous hum was the only sound in the dead silence of the house. Sheet after sheet, it spat out the evidence of my collapsed world. I looked at the growing stack of paper and saw more than just text. I saw my liberation. It wasn't revenge. It was the final report on a closed project. When the last sheet landed in the tray, I picked up the stack. The paper was still warm. I smoothed it out by tapping the edge on the table. Perfectly flat. Not a single crease. I could hear her quiet purring from the bathroom. She was happy. I went into our bedroom. I breathed in the scent of her perfume, which I had always loved and which now seemed suffocating. I looked at her side of the bed, at the pillow in the pink pillowcase where she slept every night, and I'd placed this stack of paper on it, face up, so that the first thing she would see was their shared photo from their correspondence. It was my resignation letter, my farewell letter, my final commitment to the history of our marriage. Without a single word, only irrefutable facts, I returned to the living room. I packed my laptop, a couple of changes of clothes, and some documents into my backpack. Bite woke up and came up to me, poking my hand with his wet nose. I scratched him behind the ear. "I'm sorry, buddy," I whispered. He was the only living creature in this house that I felt ashamed in front of. I walked out the door without looking back. I got in the car. I took out my phone. I found her number. And I turned off the device. I didn't just put it on silent mode. I turned it off completely. I cut off all communication, so that there would be no chance of her calls, pleas, excuses. So that her dirty data could no longer influence my system. I drove aimlessly through the night city. The lights rushed by, blurring into colorful streaks. I didn't know where I was going. I was just driving away. Away from the house that was no longer mine. Away from a life that turned out to be a lie. I stopped at the first motel I came across on the highway. A faceless room with cheap furniture and the smell of bleach. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. My head was completely empty. My processor had overheated and frozen. It was in this emptiness that I began to replay her return in my head. How she, relaxed and peaceful, would come out of the bathroom. How she would walk into the bedroom, expecting to see me. And how, instead of me, she would see a stack of papers on her pillow. I imagined her face. Shock. Disbelief. Panic. Horror. Realization. Collapse. I felt no malice. I felt no satisfaction. Only a dull, aching pain. The pain of amputation. Painful, but necessary to survive. I spent 2 days in that motel. My phone was turned off. I was cut off from the world. On the third day, I turned it on. Hundreds of missed calls from her, her mother, our mutual friends. Dozens of messages full of pleas, remorse, and accusations. I scrolled through them without reading them and pressed delete all. I called a lawyer. A week later, I rented a small, sterile white apartment in another neighborhood. I bought a new mattress, a new desk, and a new computer. I started writing my life from scratch. From a new, empty file. She moved out of our house a month later. She took her things and the dog. We never saw or spoke to each other again. The lawyers communicated for us. Sometimes I wonder if what I did was cruel. Probably yes. But her betrayal was no less cruel. She slowly and methodically killed our love over months, looking me in the eyes and smiling. I simply declared it dead. My method left her no room for manipulation, for lies, for attempts to rewrite history. I didn't give her a chance to turn our tragedy into a cheap soap opera with screams and tears. I just gave her a log file of her own mistakes. And pressed enter. End of file.